absolutely delighted to have this conversation with my friend and fellow board member, Anita Adams. I'm just going to share a little bit about Anita, just in case you don't know who she is, what she's all about in the world. And then we're going to dive into a couple of questions that just start framing this conversation of stillness and inner listening and so on. But I am pleased to say Anita is the Canadian ambassador of Female Wave of Change. Amy Lee mentioned that it's 40 countries. Is that right? Wow. Yeah. But before stepping into this role and into the work that Anita's involved in right now, which is teaching this idea of inner wisdom and really tapping into that, she had founded a national nonprofit organization, and she ran that or led that for 18 years, where she developed some really key expertise in being able to organize impactful events, build strategic partnerships with other individuals and entities, and really leading this team of professionals that included a board of directors, staff, volunteers. And this was a cross-country initiative that she was involved with. But today her mission, I think is a little more uh, profound and simple in the sense that, teaching people really how to reconnect with their soul voice. And I think we all kind of love this. We all lean into this, but we're like, oh, what is that? But teaching people how to listen into their soul voice so that we can confidently make choices and become the people that we were born to be, create this rich, joyful life that we envision for ourselves. Anita is a leadership coach. She's a speaker. She's a retreat leader, podcast host. I'm trying to think of what you don't do. Best-selling author of Whispers of the Soul, an amazing read if you have not had your hands on that yet. And she is a visionary in creating something called the Wisdom Way, which I'm hoping she'll talk a little bit about in our conversation. What I think is really also very cool about Anita is that her and her husband decided to become nomads, and they don't have, I mean, they have sort of a permanent residence right now in Sun Peaks, but they've done a tremendous amount of traveling and they're just out there chasing joy. So welcome, Anita. I think this can be such a great conversation.
Thank you so much for such a beautiful introduction. I so appreciate you, Trish.
Mm. Well, so for those of you who don't know Anita and don't really know much about this idea of inner listening, I think that's where I'd like to start, Anita, is really sort of setting up a bit of a baseline for people. What are we talking about when we use these words of inner listening and soul voice and,
Yeah.
intuitive wisdom and whatnot?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's really the ability to quiet the noise of the world around you and go inward and tune into your body, your emotions, sensations, those gut feelings. And these things, they happen all the time. Like when we hear somebody talk about something and we get like goosebumps all over our body, for instance. I like to call those actually truth bumps because you're hearing something profoundly truthful, and so that's a way your body is telling you, it's communicating to you. Other things, have you ever done something where it felt a little icky? Like maybe it just felt off for you. That's another way of our body saying you're out of integrity with who you really are.
Mm.
Or maybe meeting somebody and for no real apparent reason, you just don't trust them. And again, that is your body telling you that there's something off about this person. They're not being truthful about who they are. There's all sorts of different ways that our body speaks to us. And in many ways, that inner guidance is trying to protect us. It is also leading us to our purpose and things like joy. Something I like to get my clients to do is something I call joy spotting. What sparks joy in you? Notice the things that spark joy, because this is the way our body is talking to us. Our inner wisdom, our inner guidance is trying to point us in the direction of our true path. So what sparks joy? And the other things I encourage people to do is to keep track of what energizes you and what drains you. These again, these sensations are guideposts that help us understand the direction we should be moving in, or how we should be limiting our time with the people that drain us or the activities that drain us. So these are all ways of listening to our inner wisdom.
I, first of all, thank you for that. That was a really comprehensive way of describing this. And I think, it gave people a lot of different things to maybe hook into and say, oh, I've noticed that, or, oh, I think I can recognize that. But here's what I'm really loving about where you were going with this is that it's our body that in many ways becomes sort of a communicator for us. And so I would love for you to, if you could, or if you would, maybe share a story about how this is kind of manifested for you. How has the body become a conduit for that kind of communication that you're talking about?
Yeah, it comes in so many different ways. For me, I often hear my voice. It's my voice speaking to me, but it feels like an older, wiser version of me. So a lot of times it starts with a feeling, and then I need to get quiet and go inward and ask, what is that, or is that really mine to do? So like an interesting and very recent experience. I was about 6 months ago, I was invited to work with another life and leadership coach. It's actually somebody I write about in my book. Had such a profound influence in my life. I worked with her as her being my coach a number of years ago. And she invited me to come on her team to work with some of her clients once a week in facilitating group conversations. And I had to go inward and ask myself, is this mine to do? And I had such a flurry of emotions. There was the excitement. It's like, oh, I love the opportunity to work with this woman. And then there was some fear and worry there. And I went in and I asked, is this mine? Is this really mine to do? And I got such a clear answer. What I heard was, this will bring you to tears.
Oh,
This will really challenge you and push you outside of your comfort zone, and you will grow and step into the next best version of you. And even as I say that, I get the tingles, those truth bumps in my body. And I knew that I needed to do it. I knew it was going to be hard in so many levels. And yes, it has so much pushed me out of my comfort zone. And I have cried more than once working with this woman who really does challenge me and pushes me to step up into the best version of me. And that's hard. It hurts sometimes to step into that version. And yeah, so it was a combination of different feelings, and then really pausing and taking time to go inward and ask questions to find the clarity. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't do, is they don't give themselves the time and space
mm.
to really find the answers. And it's so crucial that you do. When I decided to close my business, that was an inner wisdom, inner listening result. Me spending a lot of time in the forest, asking, what do I really want? What do I want now? And the answer came that I wanted to close my business. And at first that really shocked me. And I'm like, no, I don't want to close my business. This was in the early stages of the pandemic. And it was hit hard by the pandemic. And I'm like, no, I don't want to close my business. I want to save my business, don't I? And I was like, no, I actually want to close it. But there has been so much fear of the unknown, of letting go of my identity with that business, that I had clung on to it for so long, for so many years, long past the time I was ready to let go. And then when I really listened, and I had to keep going back into nature, because that's where I found I can most easily connect to that part of me. And I listened. And it was, the more I asked, is that what I want? Is that what I really want? Because I just couldn't believe it at first, that that's what I wanted, was to close my business. The more I asked, the more I leaned in and listened, the stronger that yes became. And the conviction in the body, the feeling of yes, the rightness of it. And you've all experienced that, the brightness of something, you know it with every fiber of your being. And I intentionally did not talk to anybody about this until I was clear about my own answer first. And I think that is really important because we can so easily be influenced by other people's opinions. Everybody has an agenda, everybody has their own goggles on, and they see the world through their own goggles. And we can be influenced by what other people think if we don't have the clarity for ourselves first. So I didn't even talk to my husband about it for about 2 weeks until I was so sure, so convicted with this is the right thing for me to do, that I then had conversations. And sure enough, my husband didn't push back. He was great. But other people in my industry really pushed back. They really wanted me to continue to do the work we were doing and didn't think I should walk away from it. But I knew what I needed to do. And I'm so glad I did.
Oh, that's a great story. There's so much in there, and I was thinking I was going to circle back on one thing, and maybe we'll revisit this in the back half of the 30 minutes, because what I really wanted to spend some time on and make sure that we talked a little bit about was the practices, making this a part of our personal practice, because I don't know about you guys, but I know for a fact that, I mean, the best laid intentions, right?
Mm.
And then all of a sudden, you got 6 emails that you got to respond to. And, that block of time that you set aside to go meditate or go for a walk or whatever is blown completely. So let's talk about practices and building that personal practice, if you would.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. And I know how easy it is to be distracted and how easy it is to feel like we have other more important things to do. The thing is that we are way more productive when we actually give ourselves the time to clear the mind and step away from things. And we are better equipped to be in service to others. Another really quick little story. A couple years ago, my mom and sister were going through some chaos and having to move and everything. There was some hoarding that was going on. So there's a lot of stuff that needed to be cleared out of the house. And it was a challenging time and they had a tight deadline. And so I dedicated myself to helping them and I put everything else on hold, including my spiritual practice, because I felt like I needed to be there for my mom and my sister and I had to give them all my time. The thing is, I became so edgy and not that I got unkind, but I wasn't as gentle with my family that were going through some emotional stuff. And not only that, I started to become unkind to myself in the sense that I started to feel doubts about the work I was doing because I was not making time for my inner work. And that's what happens when we step away from the practice. We start those self-doubts start to creep in, or whatever your issue might. For me, that sense of being on the right path and that sense of doing the work that is meant to be brought into the world, I started to question. When I am consistent with the practice, I don't question it. I know this is the right path that I'm on. I feel that conviction within my body, and that drives me forward. That drives me into inspired action. So making time for this practice has become a non-negotiable. I started calling my walks in nature was a big part of my spiritual practice because that was, for me, that was the easiest way to quiet the noise and unplug from everything. I started to call them my God walks. And I would even put them in my calendar that I've got a God walk at, 10 a.m. on, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever.
Mhm.
And that helped me because I'm not going to break my appointment with God. Are you kidding me? That's an important appointment.
That's fantastic.
No, yeah. So those are just the importance is to really block out the time to make a commitment to that because you're making a commitment to yourself. You're making a commitment to God. You are making a commitment to show up to be your best self. And when we make that time, oh, I love that.
I love that,
Oh God,
Patty.
get outdoors, great outdoors. I love
Great
it.
outdoors.
So great. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we might come back to another question that came up for me as you were speaking, but what you were saying just absolutely reinforced something that has landed for me in my personal practice. And it's been something, honestly, I have been really wrestling with. It was a phrase, me first and also others. Me first and also others. And when I first heard it, I was like, I'm like Virgo rising over here. She's like, oh my God, no, right? Service to society first. Anyways, you've just really reinforced that particular statement that came through, I don't know, like 6 or 8 months ago, and I've been really working with it. So, and the appointment piece, I think, is also very, very helpful for me as well. I would love to see in the chat if other people have suggestions that can just spark ideas for people who might be just at the very beginning or might be looking to try and recapture or reclaim their personal practice. If you want to put those in the chat. Um, in your opinion, based on the work that you do with individuals and, kind of even maybe what you see unfolding in the world right now, what do you think some of the biggest obstacles are for people um, in being able to hear or to listen in that inner space?
We touched on one of them already, and it's really making the time. We're not prioritizing our time for this. We don't see it as important or as important as it should be. So making the space and time is a big obstacle. And I get it too. If you're, especially if you have children and you're a working mom, for instance, like that was my reality, trying to fit all of this in, time for yourself and take care of your kids and whatever, and in business and whatnot. It can be a lot, that it's crucial. You become a better mom, a better partner, a better human being when you make that time, even if it's just 20 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. Find the time to carve that out. The other obstacle, there's fear associated with listening, really going inward and listening and being silent. Actually, there's a lot of fear associated with being in silence, which surprised me, but this is something I've learned from working with my clients. There's a number of people that just don't want to be in that quiet space because they fear what is going to emerge, the darkness that might emerge. And there's truth to that. When we get silent, we can hear things that our darker side can bring to light. One thing that has come up for me in the past is the worthiness piece, the value piece. And I think this is common. A lot of people feel like they're not good enough for whatever reason, not capable enough, not strong enough, not young enough, not pretty enough, not smart enough, not talented enough. And when we get into the silence, sometimes those voices emerge, and we don't want to hear those voices. What I encourage you to do is to recognize that's just your fear moving forward, coming to the surface, and it's something that needs to be looked at and addressed and sat with, because that's how we heal. It's how we move past that, is by actually shining the light on those darkest places. And I get it's not easy. I call it the worthlessness gremlin, is what has reemerged for me recently, like just several months ago. And I was like, wow, I thought I slain that dragon years ago, but it came back, and I'm glad in a way it came back, because I was able to really look at this part of who I am and embrace who I am lovingly in all of myself and all of my who I am. And through that embrace and really shining the light in the darkest corners of who we are, we start to love ourselves more. And love, you asked me once before, Trish, what is my core message, the underlying message that I want to share with the world? And it's really about loving yourself. The deep, deep love of who you are. And if there was, again, I got those truth bumps, right? This is truth.
Yeah.
We need to love who we are so deeply, because when we love ourselves, we're unshakable, and we can really step into who we were born to be and really make a difference in this world. So important. And it starts by getting quiet and here, tuning out what's going on out there and connecting with what's in here. Because we're amazing human beings and we need to give ourselves the time and space to hear and really connect with that part of us. And to me, that's God within us too. You know, that's God in us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Anita, so much. We're going to come back with some more questions, and I just wanted to look through the chat. Amy Leah, can we bring your question forward at the 30-minute when we come back into questions? Yeah. Okay. And maybe we'll revisit some of the comments that have been made in there as well. But for now, just so grateful for you showing up, my friend, with all of your beauty and glory and just grace. So on to our next piece. Want to thank Anita again, and I'll hand it over to Yvonne.